Hello Year 4 and welcome back to another week of your English lessons this week, where as you can see we're continuing on with our unit from last week where we're looking at stories from another culture. So last week we spent a long time looking at different stories of the African culture. And we looked at how the elephant got his trunk. We looked at how the giraffe got his long neck. But in particular, we looked at the structure of those stories and exactly how they were written and the order that they were written in. So now that we've got a really good understanding of those, we're ready. We're at the stage where we can use those as inspiration to help us to write our own stories. So once we unpicked those stories last week, you'll remember creating your own Story Mountain plan for your own British story. So you've come up with an idea for a typically British story with a British character, where hopefully you've got an idea of exactly how that character will have got a recognisable feature. So you may have decided how the badger got his stripe, how the hedgehog got his prickles, how the robin got his red breast, how the field mouse got his long tail. It's completely up to you which animal you've chosen, but hopefully your Story Mountain plan has given you a really good idea of the structure of your story using those African ones as a little bit of inspiration. Okay, so thinking back to last week then, right at the end of last week, we started to unpick the features of a play script. And that's because when you write your stories this week, you're not going to be writing them as a normal fiction story. You are going to be writing them as a play script. Okay, so towards the end of last week, you'll remember we looked at two different examples of a play script. We looked at the one that you can see here, the Alice in Wonderland example, where it's got a number of different features there for us. You also looked at one from the BFG, and you see this. You had a look to see if you could spot any of those features in the BFG play as well. So I want you to have a think back to your learning from last week, and I want you to just grab a scrap piece of paper, and on that scrap piece of paper I want you to just write down the features that you can remember from the play scripts that you looked at last week. I've given you a clue there with 6 bullet points to see if you can find all 6 things that we spotted last week. Okay, it would be really helpful if you could write them in the order that you think that you're going to need to write them for your play script today. Okay, so I want you to pause the video now and come back to me in a moment when you've got the 6 things that you think a play script needs. Okay, let's see how you got on then from last week. So, does your features list look like this? The first thing needed in a play script is going to be the characters. Okay, so who will be in your play? And at the beginning there, we just give a little bit of information about what those characters are like. So a small description, perhaps of what they look like, or more importantly, their personality, so that the actors know exactly what they're going to be like. Okay, so each of the characters in your story will be needed, and a little bit of description about them. The next thing that we're going to need to be writing this week is going to be a short introduction to the scene, exactly what the setting will look like, where your play is happening. So it will just be a short description to set the scene for the actors so that they know exactly where they're going to be, exactly what that scene needs to look like, and just to give a little bit more information about what's going on in the story. Okay. After we've got the introduction to the scene, we then have the first character talk in the play. Okay, and to show who talks, we need the speaker's name, and that will always be followed by the colon. So the first character to talk, their name will be written with a colon written afterwards. And then straight after that colon, we move into the next feature, which is the dialogue, the words that that actor is going to say. And because it's a play script and the majority of the words on the page are the words that are being said, we don't need to use inverted commas or speech marks as we might know them. Okay, so the majority of the words are going to be dialogue on your page with a little bit of stage directions included. So you can see the next feature there is stage directions. They explain to the actors what they need to do and how they do it. The actors know that that's the bits they don't say because they are written in brackets. So brackets show the actors that these are the actions that they do, and the stage directions, it's not what they say. And those actions are always written in present tense, okay, so that the actor does them at that moment in time. And then finally, you can see the last feature there is going to be a narrator. And sometimes in a play, a narrator will help to tell the story. And they will have some words to say, perhaps at the beginning, perhaps throughout, or even at the end of your story, to help the audience know exactly what's going on and to give them a little bit more information about exactly what's going on in your story. Okay, so that list of 6 things is going to be a bit like our to-do list, our success criteria across this week. And we are going to keep doing each of those things as we write our play, and the aim will be by the end of the week you will have written your play script based on the story that you planned. Okay, so your first task for today is going to be to create your character list. As you can see from our set of instructions, from our set of success criteria there, the first thing is the character list and description. So that's the first thing that I want you to write today. Okay, I want you to get your story mountain plan that you created last week, and I want you to just list down all of the characters that are going to be involved in your story, and just a little bit of description, a small piece of information about what that character looks like, and more importantly, how they act. Okay, so you can see I've done an example there for you. In my story, you can see I've got 5 characters involved. Badger is going to be my main character. He's going to be a quiet and timid character, and he's going to be afraid of the road and being hit by a car. Okay, I'm also going to have a rabbit in my story. He's going to be energetic and excitable, who just loves to bounce. I'm also going to have a spider in my story, who's going to be kind and caring and likes to create puzzles for the other characters to solve. I'm going to have a robin, who's going to be a loyal friend to the others, and he's going to help everybody by using his bird's eye view, things that he can see that the others can't. And I'm going to have an owl in my story, who of course is going to be the oldest character and the wisest by far. He's going to be the character that is respected by everybody else in the story. So my characters are all typically British, characters that we'd find in the British countryside. I want you to create your own character list now using your plan from last week. So pause the video now and come back to me when you've done. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you've got your character list sorted now. So we're now going to move on to the next thing on our success criteria. We're now going to be thinking about the setting, and we're going to do a short description to explain where your story is set. Okay, remember, think about how you're going to make your story British. So when we looked at the African stories, we looked at all of the sand in the story. There were orange and mango trees growing. There was a water hole. All of those features, the sun beating down, all of those features made it typically African. Okay, so think about how you can describe your setting to make it typically British. Okay, so you can see, as always, I've done my example to help you. This will be written directly underneath the character list that you've just created. Okay, so Badger is sitting alone in front of his set. You'll notice that this is written in present tense, okay, because it's what's happening at the beginning of the play. He puts his face into his paws and he sobs quietly to himself. He's on the edge of the forest, set back from the main road. The moon is shining brightly, casting shadows, and many of the nocturnal characters are out, ready to hunt. Okay, so just a few short sentences to give the audience a little bit more information of exactly what's going on and what this place looks like. Okay, so pause the video now, come back to me when you've written your short setting description. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you've now got your character list and you've got your setting description ready. You can see on the screen in front of us now, I'm going to be referring quite heavily to my plan from last week. So it's really important that you've got your plan and you know exactly where your story's going. Okay. To start with, today we are just going to be writing the first scene. Okay, so now that I've written the character list, now that I've written the setting description, I'm ready to start my play. And I'm ready to start thinking about who's going to be the first speaker. I'm ready to think about what they're going to say, and I want to present it on my page just like a play script. Okay, thinking back to those African tales from last week, we know that the first section of our story needs to introduce the main character, first of all. That's the first thing that we're going to need to do. But we also need to remember that our main character has a problem. He's not happy about something. Remember, when we introduce the character, that character needs to look different to how we would normally expect to see them today. Okay, so if you've got a hedgehog, he wouldn't have any prickles at the start of your story. If you've got a robin, it wouldn't have a red breast at the start of your story. And like my badger, he doesn't have his white stripe at the start of the story. But that's not the reason he's sad. The reason that he's sad for me, or for my character, is because he keeps being run over, or family members keep being run over by cars, and he's terrified of the road, and he's scared that he can't leave his home in case he's going to get run over. Okay, so that's my character's initial problem. So when you planned your story last week, you will have had your main character who has something that's making them sad, something that makes them unsettled for some reason, and that's what I need to get across in my play. Okay, so you can see here I've included my example ready to help you, and in my play the first speaker is going to be my narrator. So I've got my speaker name there with my colon following on after that. Okay, and my narrator is going to introduce the story, a bit like the monkey did in the Tinga Tinga Tales that we watched last week. So as you can see, I've said the narrator is going to say, there was once a time when Badger had no stripe and was covered head to toe in black fur. So I'm introducing that character to be not how we would normally recognise them. Badger quietly crying to himself, Spider scuttles past him and is concerned at how upset he is. Some stage directions there to tell the actors exactly what they need to do. Recognise again that they are written in present tense. Okay, and then the character to speak is then going to be Spider. Notice that I've left a gap in between the two characters talking there, between my narrator talking here and my spider talking here. I've left a gap to show there's a different character talking. I've still got my character name at the edge of the page, and I've got my colon to show that that's the character speaking. And he then says, "Good evening, Badger. Why are you so sad on such a bright and lonely night?" A gap again for my next character to reply. Badger with some stage directions this time to show how he's acting, sniffling and taking his paws away from his face. "Oh, hello, Spider. I'm sorry, I'm just so sad. Another family member was lost again last night. That is 3 just this month." So straight away at the beginning of my story, I've introduced my main character and I've said what it is that's making him sad. Okay, so mine is nowhere near finished yet. For the first scene of mine, I want my characters to say a lot more. I've just done the start for you to get you started, okay? But I'd be looking to see that yours has a lot more going on in the first scene of your play, okay? I don't want you to skip ahead to this box yet. We're going to come to that in tomorrow's session, okay? So I just want you to introduce your main character today and explain to the audience why that character is feeling sad, what his initial problem is, okay? Good luck. Have fun writing the start of your play script, and I'll see you tomorrow ready for the next part. Have fun, guys.